Hello and welcome out to this week's episode of Outbreak Gamers. I'm your host, WebDave, David Anthony, big fat guy in the chair. That's me.
And me.
And I'm here with Jesse Norris. Jesse, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I know you were talking earlier in the green room. You're kind of the jack of all trades.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So I guess we'll get things started with like maybe like what was your first like job you've ever had? Like I don't know, paperboy, so, I don't know.
Very first one.
Yeah.
Turning 41 this year, so I got to dial it back quite a bit. Let me think.
Still got you beat.
Yeah, I think the very, very first one would probably have been Dunkin' Donuts, if I'm
Oh,
remembering correctly.
very cool. Very cool. So I guess we all start somewhere, and that being having a job enables you to pay for our hobbies, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I guess so what was your first experience with video games? How'd that come about?
Having an older brother who was way into them, and so he's like 5 years older than me. So growing up, we always had pretty much everything. Parents getting them like it was all we ever really wanted were sports stuff and video games. Play basketball, play football and tennis and stuff, and play a lot of video games.
Nice, nice. So what was your first, I guess, experience on that? Was it like a console, arcade? What was that?
Probably we had a Nintendo, and then we had a Sega Genesis and a Super NES, and went from there. We had the literal Tower of Power. We had the Genesis, the 32X, the Sega CD under it. We had the whole shebang.
Nice.
Having all that, and then having like one of the 4-player carts on top, and it was like this giant monstrosity. Going up to
Wow.
the arcades at the beach all the time, and getting like $10, sometimes 20, if we were
Nice.
lucky, from the family to mess around and not bother them for the night.
I know
I
that
think I
feeling.
owned, man, I think I've owned I've had like every console for a while outside of the GameCube, which I've still never touched. And but I've played some GameCube games
Hmm.
through nefarious means, and
I don't know what it means.
PS4 and on for that. So we got a PS5 here. My son owns it, but PS4 and PS4 Pro we never owned directly, but I did use them at my friend's house. Other than that, I think I've owned pretty much every major console. Obviously, not like the TurboGrafx 16 and
Right.
Atari Jaguar and stuff like that. I always wanted a Neo Geo because that would have been
Yep.
nice. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I'll have to brag and say that I've owned all of those, including the Neo Geo with their big, massive cartridges.
yeah, you were pretty much just buying a little what they stuck in their arcade machine. So
Yeah, it
about
was it's
$900.
pretty crazy, pretty crazy. Luckily, when I was getting it, it was when eBay was still kind of in infancy, kind of thing. So I
You could
picked it
find
up,
the deals. Yeah.
got a really good deal. Exactly, exactly. The hardest part was buying a memory card for that thing. I actually still
Mm.
had to go through the manufacturer to get the memory card, and that was almost $100
Oof.
just to save any progress. But when you start playing some of those games, you really want to have some progress.
Hmm.
Oh goodness. All right. So with that, some of your early gaming that you've done, what I guess what really got you was it like was it just like a hobby, something fun to do? I mean, cuz now it's kind of a big part of your life, you know,
Mm.
it's tied to gaming. So how did that I guess evolve into like your passion and your employment now?
Yeah, it was pretty much. It was always the main recreational activity because we didn't have a bunch of money. And gaming, you can just spend $60 and then you've got something that can last you as time goes on, and you start getting things like World of Warcraft. It can last you many thousands of hours. Um, and then it turning into XboxEra was completely random. I joined the forum Resetera at one point just because I had heard of it. I barely ever touched it because after seeing what it was, I was like, this isn't really a great place to be if you're mainly focusing on Xbox and PC gaming right now. But I ran into, God, I think it was Nick, and he was talking about having a Discord, the private XboxEra secret special Discord that Phil Spencer's in. He's talked one time, once. He said
That's
Merry.
funny.
He said Merry Christmas. He's talked twice on our forums when we wished him a happy birthday.
That's
But
nice.
yeah. But it was like it's just a group, and it's private simply because there were a lot of like industry people, either developers or journalists and stuff. So you don't want to just inundate them with a bunch of random people joining. So I got into that, got to talking, found out, oh, they do a podcast, tried watching it, was kind of unwatchable. Um, but we turned that around. Eventually, I was like, you guys are looking for people to do stuff. Maybe I'll try like a game review. So I did, the very first one I did was Recore. I wrote it. It's really bad,
Oh,
but thankfully, Ursel, aka Soul Blazers, did the
mhm,
video for me because I had no idea how to do any video editing or producing or anything like that 3 years
mhm.
ago. So he did the video for me, and it was really good. I was like, oh, this is actually done okay. And then someone else was going to do Wasteland 3. And I'm like, shit, I can't do it now. And I said, I can do it. And I ended up doing Wasteland 3, which I gave a very high score. I think I gave it a 9.8. Looking back, I'd probably go down to like 9.5 because I freaking loved that game. But I
Yeah,
was probably a little high. But man, yeah. So it was random luck, and then I just was like, this is really fun. I like doing it. I like this site. We're really lucky to have the art guy we do, pre-drag, who makes us look like we have a budget because we don't. We have our Patreon and we have our like YouTube money, but that just pays for all of the hosting and stuff that we have to do on
right.
our website, and the more and more stuff we add on to it. Um, and it just kind of went from there. I started doing so many reviews, and I bought a mic, like a really shitty, cheap $25 one. And then the wife found me a Yeti for cheap, and has been fully encouraging me the whole way. Because
Nice. That's
she's the
awesome.
breadwinner, so I'm able to even try and do this. So I was gonna say thank you, honey, right over there. But because yeah, I'm just in our living room right now. These are her bookshelves that I filled up with knickknacks that she's okay with.
Nice.
But yeah, so it was just I'm all self taught. Like on the videos, I've probably done like 250 videos now in the 3 years I've produced. Like God, between I've done like 400 live streams. That's not really producing, It's just you set up a couple OBS things and a capture, and you're good to go. But the video editing, learning DaVinci, and the producing like for actual live shows, and I don't know if like I did this whole stupid little green screen set where I had a green screen, John had a green screen, Sick Mechanico, and Ursula had a green screen, but Nick, our superstar, just had a green blanket, which we got working as a chroma keyed out background. And then I just like stuck us all around this really funny looking desk that one of our community members made, and Unreal. And yeah, so just learning these fun things has just become almost intoxicating, where I
Yeah.
get bored if I'm not working on review so that I can try and do something new and cool with it, or just constantly trying to make the podcast look better. Like I end up putting a ton of time into it just because it is really fun. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, from my aspect, from looking in on watching your show, you know, it looks incredibly polished now. That's all I can say. So
we still don't have a
kudos to
budget.
you. Well,
Yeah. Yeah, it's mostly very lucky that pre-drag makes us really good looking stuff,
hmm
and then just trying to find ways to make it look both like like try and make it look good but clean and not
hmm
overly busy. I think for a little while there, for the holiday stuff, I go overly busy on purpose, like make it all red and green and have a ton of decorations and
yeah,
dumb shit because it's Christmas, but
sure.
or New Year's, where I go even more over the top and gaudy. But yeah, for the
Well,
most part, it's just like these little tiny changes I can make to make things look nice. Like he made us some borders that go around and animate and like all that stuff. It's not hard. You just have to kind of think of it and then have somebody good at art to do it, or you find something online in a free resource. Like a lot of the music and stuff is just free through YouTube Audio.
hmm
Their music library's got a lot of decent stuff in it.
yeah.
So our main thing is trying to trick people into thinking we're super professional and have money behind us. Then the sad reality is that we have no money behind us, which is why we end up pushing our Patreon so hard.
Well, but then again, you put out a good product that people want to give you money for
Hmm.
Patreon. So, you have to
It's worked. It's doing all right.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think so. And I mean, I've watched your show a lot, and I thought that was kind of funny. So Nick's a superstar, huh?
I mean, he thinks he is.
There you go. No, I like Nick a lot. I'm just playing,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's a good combination, and they're kind of a good balance. And I do like it that there's times when the show's going and you'll chime in. It's like where'd that come from? And I do like it too when you do
I
the
got moved onto the camera now. John and people in the chat were like, "Hey, we like him. He should be on more." And Nick was like, "No, I like the voice of God thing." I was like, "Okay, whatever." And then, but enough people were like, "No, you should be on." So I'm on. Actively on camera most of the time now.
nice, nice, nice. Well, I haven't seen the last couple of weeks or so I apologize for
It's
that.
been a little busy.
Yeah, 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 a lot of stuff going on. That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, I do remember
I'm already begging Bethesda PR for Starfield code. It's like that game's so big,
oh
please.
yeah.
So I think I obviously wasn't doing this back then, but they gave roughly 3 weeks on Skyrim and Fallout 3 or 4, and I'm
Mhm.
like, that's not enough. That's not enough for Starfield.
Mm-mm.
If you can give me 6 weeks, we're talking. You give me 8 weeks, I'm in heaven. But
Yeah, well,
that game's
and
so big.
considering they think it's I mean, from what we understand, I don't have any insight, but I'm sure you do that it's a lot further along than most games are when they're
Yeah,
ready to
it's. I mean,
release.
they pretty much have talked like they've been. They call it, Avowed. It was coming out with Avowed with like, what does alpha and beta mean? It just means you can start the game and finish the game. Like you can go all the way through, you can beat it. How
Mhm.
polished that is, how much time you need with that varies from developers. Some treat their pre-production like pre-production, and then you start in production. Some treat their pre-production like production, and their production is just putting things together and tightening them up. With Starfield, the original date, as Phil alluded to on Giant Bomb, wasn't even November 2022. It sounded like if they hadn't been buying ZeniMax, it might have been 2021.
Isn't that crazy?
Oof. Yeah, because ZeniMax was desperate for money, which is why they were selling, because they
Right.
were trying to force on games as a service games on studios that weren't built for it. And oddly enough, it didn't work that great. They got
No.
lucky. ESO has become very good. Fallout 76 has become good, but they were not. ESO was okay, but
Right.
Fallout definitely was not at launch.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I played ESO for a good year and a half. I was, doing the monthly thing with the and
Mhm.
getting the coins and all that stuff. And I was, finally, I was just one day I was like,
Yeah, I'm good.
turned it off, and then about a couple of weeks later, I just quit playing because it was really eating a lot of time.
Mhm.
Great game, but
Yeah,
man, I was just like,
they just gave me a code for Necrum, like
oh,
to check it out.
hmm
Potential review, probably not. I'm just gonna stream it a bunch and see from there because I haven't kept up with it, and it's really hard to review an MMO if you haven't
yes,
kept up with it. Because then everyone's like, "Well, you have no idea what you're talking about," and I'd be like, "Yes, I don't." But
you're right.
a-
But I got a code and you don't. No, I'm just kidding.
and as far as Starfield goes, I do think it's just been polishing up graphics, polishing up bugs, polishing up gameplay mechanics. Like everything's there and set, and you can see in the year's time. And even the build that we just watched is probably older. Like they're
hmm
not making 45-minute deep dives with daily builds of stuff.
Right.
Um, I really, and that's why I hope. And if we get up, Christ, I don't like signing them, but if I have to sign an NDA and say, like, I understand this is super early and you're going to be patching it a bunch and I won't set my expectations or my review on performance at, 6 weeks out, I'll wait for a later patch, fine. But the more time I can get with that game, the happier I will be. And the happier I think every reviewer will be because there's also a bajillion freaking games coming out around that time.
Well, yeah, and there's so many different mechanics that you can kind of get lost into, you know.
Mhm.
So, people are talking about building their ship, and other people are like, build a ship. I'm just going to go steal a bunch of them. So,
Yeah, are you spending all that time working on your customization of your character or building
hmm
bases or just the sheer amount of stuff in it is daunting
hmm
for anyone when you don't have a time restraint on it. But if you're like, I've got to play this, I want to beat the main story at least. I want to probably. So with Elden Ring, I had 6 days and I put in 80 hours
wow.
ish. But that's just playing because then you've still
hmm
got to write, narrate, and edit. And thankfully, I've done enough of those. I think I've done like 206 reviews now between almost mostly written, mostly videos, but lately I've been doing more written. So I can like write, go through it, edit it again as I narrate, and then do the video in a couple of hours. Like that was the Hi-Fi Rush thing. Like I
Hmm.
played it for 12 hours straight, and then had the video done in about 45 minutes. Um, the day of launch, so it was like freaking 4 a.m. I was so tired, but I was like,
Oh
I just want to
man.
get this done. And
Yeah.
then it went super viral because I was the first one, so it was worth it. But
I
yeah,
would say
so
so. Yeah.
yeah, like with Diablo, we had 10 days and I got about 100 hours in. So if I can get more time with Starfield, and the sad thing about Diablo is it wasn't the actual release, it was a build specifically for review. So it's kind of like playing hardcore mode where at the end of those 10 days your character is just wiped.
Hmm.
So that was sad. But if I get the actual Starfield package dream scenario 6 weeks early, I'd probably try and do like 150, 200 hour review. That's
Man,
the
that
only
would
way I think you can
be
actually
awesome.
really. In Diablo, this doesn't happen a ton, but some of the bigger games are like, you get this time limit. It can't be more than 20 minutes of your footage. And I'm like, why? I'm not going to spoil everything.
Right.
So, like, 6 weeks, no restrictions on length. Like, obviously, I'm not going to spoil the story. I always try and avoid that, but let me go 35 minutes. And yeah, that'll be
Mm.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, even you got to think even their showcase where they were trying to show off elements of the game was like
Mhm.
45 minutes, and they're
They
just
didn't
kind of
show
show you little
any
bits and
of the
pieces.
survival stuff. Like if you notice
Right.
on the UI, it's talking about broken arm and radiation levels and poison and you're sick and like there's so many more mechanics to the game. And I'm sure people are like, oh god, it's going to be too much, that they'll let you interact with them as much as you want, because they had talked
Hmm.
about people who want hard sci-fi like The Expanse, like really having to worry about your fuel and being able to strand yourself, and all the having to really worry about radiation and shielding and stuff. And I think he mentioned that like a survival mode was something they were thinking about post launch. But now that they've delayed the game a year, maybe that is something that's in the game, because there was a lot of
Hmm.
hints about that type of stuff, which was cool.
Yeah. That, and I mean, getting into space and doing space battles and pirating and all that kind of stuff.
The
And
fact
what
that you
was
can
it?
blow them up and you can take their stuff from space, or you can dock them and just steal the ship and go in and, or just go
Yeah.
in and say hi, like literally just hail someone docked in their ship and go have a meal. Like, god, that game sounds really good.
It's a shame you're not looking forward to this.
Just a little. Oddly enough, and people will say like, "Well, you're so looking forward to it, you probably shouldn't review it. You should let somebody else who's more skeptical review it." And I'm like, a lot of my best friends are people who absolutely love the Zelda series and gave Tears of the Kingdom a 10. No one complained that it's a great game. They agree with them. And
There
if
you go.
Starfield's a bad game, I'll give it a bad review. Like, though I lost credibility because I'm one of the few people who actually did really enjoy Redfall. Gave it an 8.5, which still wasn't the highest. There was people at 9 and over 9, but
Hmm.
because we have Xbox in the name, I became a real target.
Mm.
So, but it goes both ways, because then I gave Scorn, which was a Game Pass game, a 4 because I hated everything about it, and I didn't
Yeah.
even think it looked very good. And people then said, "Oh, well, you're just a hater." So it just comes and goes,
You're everything, Jess.
pretty much.
That's awesome. That's
Depending on the
awesome.
person talking to you, anyone can be anything online.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that 100%. For sure. Um, well, gosh, with that, I guess some of your I kind of want to get into like the process
Mhm.
of like say you're say you got a show coming up for Saturday. Now, obviously, I don't want to give away this week's show coming up. Maybe you could talk about it
I think we're having
couple of
Rand
weeks
on.
ago. Yeah, yeah, just kind of but like how it like how you put everything together for the show that Nick and everybody puts on. So how does that what's like a day in the life
Mm.
of you building that?
So I've got my OBS scene. I'll go in. We Nick makes all of our thumbnails. I'll take the thumbnail he made. Like we'll talk to each other back and forth once we've come up with a good idea for a thumbnail and a title. He'll make the thumbnail. I'll schedule it online, and then I'll take that thumbnail. I stick it in the back of my OBS scene. So, like on the going live thing, you've got the thumbnail, and I'll change the names. I've just got like little text GDI things that I'll just change the episode number and the name. That's about all I have to change on the front page. Other than that, I have a VLC playlist of music I'll get that I think matches the theme or just sounds cool, depending on if there's nothing that truly matches the theme. But like last week, I just had the 10-minute or just under 11-minute long Starfield Suite playing because obviously it's all I and Jez really want to talk about. Not Nick because he has got terrible taste, but um, yeah. So, and other than that, we've already made nameplates for pretty much every guest we have. So if we have a guest on, I'll just pop their nameplate there. Rand's never on camera, so it's not something to really have to worry about. But yeah, it's just changing elements I already have. I will go in and touch scenes up on an occasion. We use StreamYard too. I just pull that into OBS with a window capture.
Hmm.
So I've got a window captured because I stream at 1440p because why not? We're on YouTube.
Right.
So my main screen here will have StreamYard maximized out, OBS on top of that. I've got 4 monitors. One here is where I will have, because we do a thing called Name a Game.
Yes.
So yeah, my secret talent in life seems to be making really dumb similes for video game names.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I'll have like the scoreboard, which is just some free scoreboard thing I found online on Google, and then we use Buzzin Live for our rollback netcode buzzer because you kind of need that when John's in the UK, I'm in the US, and Nick is in Australia. It'd be really hard to actually sync anything up. I've got another monitor, a little portable one I reviewed. That's really nice. They didn't ask for it back, so it's still here, and it's on. That's where, like, if I'm going to play a YouTube video for a game or something, that's a display capture for another scene. I don't know if you've ever seen how they move in and out. That's just a if you go on GitHub, it's just called OBS Move. It's very easily named. Just a plugin that I downloaded for it and set so that it moves, everything moves nice. You just gotta make sure the same name and locations and everything's real smooth. Getting it all set up the first time, real pain in the ass. It took me weeks to get it to look even decent. But now I could completely delete and rebuild that OBS scene in like 20 minutes because I've done it so many times. Like I remember what everything is and resizing it and getting it where I want to go and all that. It's a hell of a lot easier because I'm going to have to. I completely rebuilt it for 1440p, but we haven't had 4 people on camera since then. So I'm going to have to rebuild the 4-person camera one this week. And it's going to take me like maybe half an hour at the most because I got to do we have our main 4 people showing. It'll be John, Nick, Rand, me, and Rand's audio avatar. And then I have the second scene that we use, which is when I'm showing gameplay or something, or just the display capture and everything moves. So once those 2 are set up, that's kind of it. The only thing I have to change from week to week are the thumbnail, the text on the bottom to match that episode number and episode name, and then if we have a guest, change the nameplates. Other than that, we have a Patreon question section, and to make it feel cooler for people, I'll screenshot their questions, and when we go over them at the end of the show, I pop them up on screen for them. And those are the only real weekly things I have to do since everything's set up now. It's nice.
Yeah. Well, it really it looks really professional. You do a great job. So, just kudos to you on that because it's like I said, it really does look really good. Now, have you ever, I guess, breaking news while you're doing a show, and how do you handle something like that?
A lot of times it's just go to display capture because if like there's something to show or something just happened, there's a web page. I can just pull up a web page, put it on there, go to that. I've got so we use StreamYard, but we don't use any of the StreamYard stuff. I'm just using it for video calls because the latency is so unbelievably good.
It is great.
Nick's in Australia, John's in the UK, and yet I feel like I'm having a conversation with someone down the street.
Yeah.
Over Discord. Like it's so much better than anything else we've used. So I've got on the main window, I've got a just a little text thing I'll type in that's the current topic. Or little things, try and be funny with it sometimes. A lot of just messing around, finding we've got access to Envato elements. So using that to get some dumb green screen stuff like that. I don't know if you've ever seen that little girl that comes up and shakes her hand menacingly at Nick. That's from Envato.
It's funny.
funny things on green screen on YouTube you can find where you just chroma key out the color, where people are like, hey, feel free to use this. So I do, because again, we don't have much of a budget. Otherwise, I'd try and find more stock footage we could pay for.
Sure.
But it's just using every little trick you can, and then just thinking about it and spending the time on it. Because I think a lot of people are like, oh, I would have done that if I had ever thought about it. So a lot of it just comes down to once, twice a month, I'll just go through and be like, okay, I want to refresh a little. I want to find some new stuff, or there's this thing I want to talk about, or this thing. Like I got I got the Starfield logo
Mm.
from Bethesda's press site. By the way, for anyone ever looking to get into this, just type in publisher name press portal on Google. They're all there, and once you have a channel of any type of size, you can just apply for them, and then you get all their assets. But more importantly, you get their press contacts, which is how we've been able to get all the game reviews and everything. So
That's
that's the
fantastic.
yeah,
Thanks for that.
yeah, that was the biggest thing, because I used to feel really bad, like messaging Jeff Grubb, who we've had on, and Jez a few times. Like, I have tried everything I can, and I cannot get a contact with Blizzard. And then thankfully, people like Jez are very nice, and we've known them for a while now, so they'll
Mhm.
point you in that direction. But for the rest of it, you can find most of it on your own. And I'll say, if you can get in good with 47 PR, like work with them and do everything you say you're going to do for them, they represent most of video games. So you'll be doing real well if you get them to like you.
Wow. Well, I will work on that. Thank you. That's a nice little nugget right there. I appreciate that. Thanks. Well, all right. So we got to talk about one of the big shows that you guys had.
Hmm.
You kind of alluded to Phil earlier, but I mean, eh, no matter how you slice it, Phil Spencer is a big get for anybody.
Hmm.
And
It still feels weird that we had him on.
I feel like he would come back on again as good as it went with you all,
Oh yeah,
you
no,
know?
we had, I think we were supposed to have like 10 minutes according to PR, because he's obviously very busy. But he
Mhm.
joined 10 minutes early, shot the shit for 10 minutes, be like, okay, I was like, we're ready to go whenever, and he just kept talking, and we were just having fun. Recorded about 12 minutes, and then he hung around for like another 10 minutes just talking. It's like, yeah, he's the person you think he is from the way he talks
Mhm.
online, and just every interview you see just seems to be him. I don't think he like puts it on, where you can tell there are people who are, they're not that they're bad, they're media trained. And while
Right.
Phil is media trained, he's also still very much himself, while not putting his foot in his mouth business wise, which, like, you see with Matt Booty, you could see his media training in his answer on Arcane. And people keep trying to jump on that, not realizing he doesn't oversee Arcane. So he's not going to give you a direct answer. That's a couple of other guys at Bethesda who actually oversee that company.
Mhm.
And so when he was asked about it, he was like, "Yep, that is the plan right now." And people are like jumping on the right now, and it's that's just business speak. You don't commit ever to anything fully in the future, because there's no benefit for you as a businessman, and people, aren't used to talking that way because we're not $1 million executives. So you kind of miss it. But with Phil, he will speak in that manner, but it doesn't sound like he's speaking that way. And that's like his greatest strength as a ambassador for the brand, essentially, which I think he's really embraced. Because I know a lot of times, and he's talked about it with us, where it's like he thinks his face is out there too much. But the answer is, well, people just really like hearing from you. And
Right.
so that's why you're out there a ton, is because you are actually really good at it. And while I think like having Sarah out there more, and Pete Hines, and Matt Booty, and Aaron, and all these other people out there, Tina Meany freaking killed it on the extended showcase. She was a
Mm.
ridiculously good host. Um, but people still want to see and hear from you because you are so interesting, despite being a executive at a world dominating corporation.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I agree with that 100%. So I guess a peek behind the curtain, um, you the PR like we was anybody with Phil, I guess, or on the
Yep.
line
Yeah,
when
we
he
had a member.
talks?
So they use Assembly PR.
Mhm.
You can just see it on their website. It just says Assembly PR if you ever go to get a PR contact for Xbox
Right.
on Microsoft.com. So there was a super nice person from PR down in the bullpen here on StreamYard. She was just hanging out. She joined like a couple minutes before Phil did, made sure everything was working, and then like we were all on the call just chatting. And when it was time for the show, the way I had OBS set up, I was there, but I turned my camera off so I wouldn't be distracting. And it was Phil, Nick, and John above Phil, and she was down in the bullpen, and we just did our thing, and um, it was great. No, there was no. The direction of the appearance was him congratulating us. So obviously, it
Mm,
wasn't supposed to be like a for hitting episode 100. So it wasn't supposed to be like some grill session where we're trying
right.
to get nuggets of news out of him. But that was it. Just like the tone of why he's there. But then they didn't have any other. They didn't tell us don't ask about this or don't talk about this. It was just have a conversation for 10 minutes. It ended up going almost 15, I think. So
That's fantastic. Yeah. Now, the pre-recorded. So in other words, you had
yes,
to. So yeah,
yeah, because
just in
obviously
case
it
something
was
happens, I guess.
well, it was with his schedule because we go at Saturday night and we're like anyone big we ever get, we're gonna have to pre-record. Because I mean, outside of Seamus Blackley, who was incredible,
Hmm.
most people aren't going to show up, or Cliff Bazinski. Like
Hmm.
they're not normally going to be giving up their Saturday night to do a podcast with us, but like Jason Ronald did that for hours too. He went for like he drove into work and then was on for like 2.5 hours with us. It's
Wow.
ridiculously nice. But yeah, so like any of our bigger ones will probably end up being pre-recorded segments we play just because of scheduling, and we'll work with them on it. Though with Nick being in Australia, that also makes it tough. But I think he just got up early, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had I've interviewed a few long time ago, but in the movie industry,
Mm,
makeup effects artists, things like that, where they were talking about things that they were on, production they were on, and the whole thing is it was recorded, but then after it's done, I actually had to submit it to the studio
mhm.
for them to view it,
Yeah.
so that to make sure that there wasn't any. If there was something that just needed, oh, wasn't supposed to say quite that much,
Mhm.
take that part
Yeah.
out, take the bubble. And then and of course, every time I did it, and everything was fine. I never had to make any changes.
Mhm.
But if there was, it was like, then after I make the changes, I have to resubmit it. And it was like, okay,
Mhm.
cool. So I just didn't know if it was
Yeah.
that tedious or not. But
Not with Phil. There was one person we'd had on before. They were at a new job at a really big publisher, and it was very different. Where they were like, "We need to figure it out, and we need to have two PR people sit in there with the interview." And at that point, we're just like, "I don't think we'll be able to make this work because it's getting our schedules, three of us, the
mhm.
guest, the PR people, all scheduled at the same time."
Wow,
When they'd been on last time, they were just on for the whole show for like 2+ hours, just hanging out, and it was fine. And at that point, we're just like, we'll just wait.
yeah,
As cool as it would have been to talk to this person, their game's now been out for like 3 months. It's kind of a little too late for that. But like, we're gonna have a couple of Planet Alana devs on in 2 weeks, I think.
nice.
Um, and they're just gonna come on and hang out and be chill. Like indie devs, especially, are just come on and hang out. And as long as you want to be on, be on. And you got to go. I've got my thing set up, so I can just snap over to a different scene. And we're good.
That's really cool. That's very cool. Guys, Jess, this is awesome talking to you, man. I really appreciate this. It's kind of
It's
nice to
fun.
be able to
Yeah.
peek behind the curtain, Plus,
I don't really get to
plus,
talk about it much because most of the time it's just well, if it works, then people just go, "Oh, that looks nice." But if it
right.
doesn't work, they're like, "Hey, what the heck?" But so it's kind of like
Exactly.
being an umpire. Like if you notice the production, sometimes it's probably not a good thing. The only time you might notice it if it's like something really fancy that looks great, and you're like, "Ooh."
Yeah.
But otherwise, you're just like, "Well, how come this isn't working right or looks so weird?" And
Right.
it's cool to because it's all self taught. I have no, I'm a college graduate now, but it was in like being an IT guy
Hmm.
and stuff. It wasn't anything to do with production. This has just all been learning on the fly and spending way too much money on a setup. And like, I didn't have to, but
Yeah.
it really has helped a lot. And thankfully, the wife was okay with it, where I bought a 7900 XTX. So now I pushed everything even further,
Nice.
like with the production on, because I streamed in 4K on the 4K showcase, so I could actually make it look, if you watched with us, it looked as good as if you were watching with Microsoft, because I went 4K and I went as high as my shitty cable internet upload could go, which was like
That's awesome.
20K bit rate, and so it looked real good. and it was pushing the GPU nice and hard, and it was just like, nope, I'm I'm a monster. I can do this no problem. Compared to the old one, which used to go all the time.
Help me.
So
Yeah, and you know it is not to gloss over it. It is important to be able to have somebody that supports you. You
mhm,
know, a wife that's supportive. I'm blessed to have the same thing. Somebody there that you know that backs your passion, hobby, whatever you want to call it. You know, kind
mhm,
of thing. So that's
yeah,
cool. That's really cool.
I'm very lucky.
Yeah.
I know every time. Just makes sure to remind me. She doesn't.
That's funny. That's funny. But no, so let's talk a little bit about I guess, you know, wow, gaming right now. I mean, it seems like it is just
It is impossible to keep up with all the good
yeah.
releases. Like, and it's been weird because so much of this year was people saying no games again. Like, well, first off, no. They've already put out like Hi-Fi Rush and Minecraft Legends. For most companies, that's fine for the first half. You didn't like Redfall, fine, but they did put out three things.
Mhm.
Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition on console was very good. Um, like, and there's a bajillion third party games, and there's been a ton of good stuff in Game Pass. And if you're on Xbox, if you're on PlayStation, if you're on Switch, if you're on PC, if you're on any combination of them, you can't keep up with all of it. So stop worrying so much. Like, but it just ends up becoming these back and forth console warring talking points for cheap engagement. But for anyone who
Right.
just likes playing games, holy shit.
Yeah, you're eating good right now.
Yeah. Like,
And it
and
seems like it's only going to get better.
yeah, the second half of the year is going to keep up with the first. If you want to say, oh, nothing could match Tears of the Kingdom in the first, you know, I kind of got bored of it and stopped playing. But
Yeah.
I made the mistake. I had just been playing Breath of the Wild a bunch, and
Mm.
Tears of the Kingdom's a much better version of Breath of the Wild to me. Like if Breath of the Wild for me was an 8, Tears of the Kingdom is that 9 or above. Um, but they're so similar that I kind of burnt out on it after a little bit. I'll have to go back later. But like just the amount of stuff that's come out, and then you look like even if June and July, or I mean June's not even slow. There's still like Final Fantasy 16 coming out, and
Mhm.
on Game Pass there's like Exo Primal coming and other stuff, and Exo Primal is actually really freaking fun. So then August is Armored Core and Baldur's Gate, and then Starfield and Spider Man and Alan Wake 2 and Lies of P and Cyberpunk essentially releasing version 1.0 with its ridiculously good looking expansion. And I've probably missed like 30 things
Yeah, look,
because I've been
Forza, I mean, you can't yeah, and stuff like that. That's yeah,
I've been keeping a every game coming to Xbox and every game coming to Game Pass list up on our site just to have some type of evergreen content.
sure.
And it's ridiculous. Like there's still 40 announced games on Game Pass for this year that haven't come out. Like it's an incredible number when you actually look and say, oh, all these things. One got delayed. Um, Flintlock just got delayed to
Right.
next year. But even then, even with delays, there's still like 40 things, and it's just like, oh my god, just so
But you
damn
gotta have
good.
time to play, right?
We can have time to review. We're a
There you go.
small little volunteer team.
Now, do you ever like, like, oh, I want to play this. Can I go ahead and review it since I'm playing it? Something that may not necessarily be like the big hot review, but since you're already
Yeah.
playing it, you might as well write a
So
review up on it.
my main reviews will like embargoed reviews always get a video pretty much, unless there's something really small or we just don't have anyone to make a video.
Hmm.
So if I'm playing something that's been on Game Pass for a while, or even just a smaller game, I'll just do a written only because getting our numbers up on OpenCritic seems very important. We got onto Metacritic last year, and we're like over 200, and they only backdate you a couple months, but we've worked up to over 200 there. We're approaching 500 on OpenCritic, but we're not
Nice.
a top critic, which is the biggest thing to be to sort of guarantee you get review coverage, because top critics are the only ones that actually affect that score in OpenCritic. Like you can see 150 games or 170 reviews listed for big games, but only the ones that are a top critic actually affect that big score they put on it. So trying to get enough out there of good quality, well written videos that most of them have, or well written articles, which mostly have a video as well. Um, so I'm always trying to just do smaller written stuff to get that number up so we can hopefully become a top critic on Open Critic.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I have a feeling as good of work that you guys put out and content you put out, I have a feeling that's definitely coming up for you soon.
I hope
So
so because I can't figure out what the process is. It's completely obfuscated. I have no idea. Like I've even messaged their admin before, being like, "Any hint you can give?" And just nothing. Never heard a word.
right.
So,
Just keep at it, I guess, right?
yep.
Yeah, that's kind of all you can do. Well, I got just as we start to wrap things up, I always like to find out from people that I'm interviewing is to what is your most anticipated game that's coming out now? I've
That's not Starfield.
I've never gotten less than you know, you can be that, that's fine, but I've never gotten less than like 1 or 2 answers. In other words, no one can just define it to 1, which is fine. So I won't hold you to that standard. But the standard I do will hold you to is something that is not out yet, that's coming out, and it's something that everybody knows about. In other words, something that's I guess something that's not like, oh, as an insider I know this, and
Hmm.
you know, that kind of thing,
Hmm.
because we don't want to get anybody in any kind of trouble, because I've
Yeah.
had people that are like, oh, I can tell you about this, and I'm like, should you? Oh, probably not, then don't, because I don't want to make anybody mad, you know, kind of thing. But what game coming out, or games that are coming out that you're most looking forward to?
If I was going to give you a top 10, 1 through 7 are Starfield.
That's funny.
Yeah, it'd be like Starfield, Remnant 2. Actually, I've just heard really good things about. I loved Remnant from the Ashes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a July game, I think. And then if I'm gonna round out a top 3, and it's like a fight to the death between Lies of P and Armored Core 6. Probably go Armored Core 6. Just edges it out. Those have been my top 3.
Nice, nice. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, and well, will you be getting review codes on any of those?
We should. Yeah, I mean, I got Elden Ring is the same people that are doing Armored Core.
Right,
I've gotten everything from Bethesda so far on Xbox, so hopefully that sticks up. And God, like 2 years, a year ago, year and a half ago, I got told I'm on the list for Lies of P. You chase them real hard when you think they're going to be available.
right.
So I'll just, I already got a reply from Bethesda saying, we've gotten your request. I don't think I've got it, or wait, have I got? I actually don't remember if I've gotten it for Armored Core. I think yes, I have. I've put in a request on Armored Core, and we're supposed to be on the list for Lies of P. So we'll see.
Well, good luck on all that. I hope that works out for you.
You too.
Jesse, it's been great having you on, and I
Thank you.
really appreciate you taking the time to do this, and thank your wife for making you available for this too, because I know, like you said, you're busy doing a lot of things, but
Mm.
it is
I
greatly
got to go back
appreciated.
to Doctor Fetus's Mean Meat Machine review.
Oh wow.
Yeah, have you ever played Super Meat Boy?
You know, I didn't. My daughter was really big into it, but I
So
did not
the
play
bad
it.
guy in that is named Doctor Fetus. It's just a little
Wow.
baby, like
Yeah.
in a mech suit, and they made Doctor Robotnik's. You can just see it from the trailers. It's pretty much Doctor Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine
Yeah,
from I
yeah.
think the Genesis, but with Meat Boy stuff in it, like saws and a bunch of crazy stuff. So
That sounds awesome.
look for a review for that. Actually, it'll probably be out soon, so it'll
And,
be too late.
cool. We'll definitely do that. Tell everybody where they can find you. Of course, all the in the links below. Excuse me. The description will have all the links below and everything. But definitely go ahead and tell everybody where they can reach out to you and find you
Yeah,
online.
main thing is just XboxEra.com. We got our links at the top for our YouTube channel, which is just youtube.com/XboxEra. And the main thing is our Patreon, patreon.com/XboxEra. We're very basic. Those are the main things. Like if you want to see what we're about, just go to XboxEra.com. It's all there. You can find the YouTube page where we've got tons of reviews and previews and podcasts, and I live stream like 3 to 5 times every week. And yeah, the Patreon, if you appreciate what we do and you want to contribute a little bit to it, it's much appreciated.
Me there. There we go.
Hey,
That was weird.
you started doing a little dance
I
on your side
know.
of the screen.
That was so weird, and it like
Stream yard
auto muted
every
my
once in a while.
mic.
Yeah,
Very strange. I guess that's time. That's a sign that
it's a
I better
sign.
go quick. Oh goodness, I guess. Well, again, Jesse, thank you so much for being here, and thanks everybody for tuning in to Outbreak Gamers.